Yeah, great to talk to you guys again. I just had a couple of points. I know that Feinbaum has been widely criticized for his comments about Riley, but I do think that, he does make two important points that need to be considered. The first one is that Riley really has not yet proven himself to be an elite coach, and his defensive struggles at Oklahoma, at USC, obviously demonstrate that. So the question is, how are we going to assess Riley after this year? In my view, an 8-4 record, especially with a Big Ten schedule, would be progress in the right direction, and a better offensive and defensive line would signal the kind of upward trajectory that would warrant him keeping his job. But the second point he makes, and I want your thoughts on, is that Riley may voluntarily leave. With the NIL issues, the Big Ten schedule, why would he stay? And my question is, number one, how would you assess Riley this year in terms of record and performance on the field? And number two, do you fear that he may leave in 2 to 3 years due to those issues and go on to the NFL in an assistant position?
Matt, why don't you go first? I mean, believe me, I got a lot to say on this. But first, thank you, Roy. Thank you so much for getting us 1/10 the way towards that extra hour. Appreciate you. And then also thank you to Gary from Dana Point. Thank you. So now we're 20% of the way there for that extra hour. Appreciate two of our most loyal. And I mean, not just in super chats, but I mean, just, these two guys are here every single week. Love you guys being here. And thank you so much for the donation. Matt, why don't you go first? I'm always jumping in first. Why don't you go ahead and go first?
So, Adam, I think, the NIL ship, the NIL operation, getting that aligned, like that is obviously a huge point of concern. Everyone at USC should be taking that very seriously, and it's really priority number one for the administration, and making sure that all the roles, the different spots in the larger architecture of a football operations program are in the right alignment. The right people are in the right spots. Like Dan Lanning, certainly doing a good job selling a vision. Phil Knight obviously has the money, but you need people throughout the architecture of the Oregon football operations department to maximize revenue, to maximize the impact of their NIL program. They have all the right people in all the right roles. And so, with respect to USC, is Dave Emmerich the guy who should be in his position of administrative oversight? Like Jen Cohen and other people and Lincoln Riley need to be drilling down. Or do we have the right people in the right roles? And so if this NIL operation does not get corrected in 2 years, right now, USC needs to be better in 2024 on the field. And if USC can do that, then you're looking at a very important 2025 offseason in which you would think, if USC wins at least 9 games next year or this coming season, you would like to think that recruiting will be better. You would like to think that the gap with Oregon's going to shrink. But if Oregon continues to just absolutely hammer USC in the NIL space and creating some separation in terms of the consistent caliber of recruit that comes in the door after the next 2 years. So after 2025, going into 2026, if USC just keeps getting kicked to the curb by Oregon and Dan Lanning and other programs, and it's just not pulling in elite talent, Lincoln Riley might reassess. But I think there's very little, if any, flight risk before then, partly because, Mike McCarthy I mean, Jerry Jones just keeps Mike McCarthy with the Dallas Cowboys like that. Okay, that's your decision, Jerry. But I don't see the Cowboy. If they weren't going to fire McCarthy now, I mean, what's going to make you think that another 12-5 season and another first or second round playoff loss, is that going to make Jerry abandon ship? I mean, if the Dallas Cowboy job or a few select other NFL jobs are not open, what is Lincoln Riley's move? You're still the coach of USC. It's still a special career opportunity. You left Oklahoma for it. So I'm not seeing much of any risk of Lincoln Riley leaving USC at any point in the next 2 years. But after 2 years, if either the USC program isn't a lot better or the USC NIL isn't a lot better, and obviously those two things are significantly related, we could see Lincoln Riley reassess. But like, I don't see him bailing on this challenge soon. Like, if 2024 doesn't really hit the sweet spot for him, he'll want to get it right in 2025. And these new defensive coaches, you know, they're all brand new. They're all coming in. If 2024 isn't exactly what they want, they'll want to then follow up and get it right in 2025. So I think that the next 2 years, we're going to see Lincoln Riley. We're going to see these defensive coaches. You know, maybe one might leave, but then like Taylor Mays could fill in for Doug Belk. You could have a reorganization of some sort because there's plenty of talent on this defensive coaching staff. Like, if one of the current guys on the defensive staff leaves after 2024, it's not catastrophic because you still have 3 really credentialed guys on board. Now, if 2 guys left, which would be a huge surprise too, you know, then that would be a different conversation. But I think this staff is going to be fundamentally intact for the next 2 seasons. And then at the end of the 2025 season, there will be time for a reassessment. And just to reiterate one other thing, that if Lincoln Riley has a bad 2024, that doesn't mean he's gone. What it means is he's on the hot seat entering 2025. Now, I don't think he's going to have a bad 2024, but if he does, it doesn't mean he's going to be gone. It means that he will have to get it right in 2025. So I think we're looking at a 2-year window, folks. Good, bad, indifferent. He's going to be here the next 2 years, barring a significant plot twist where we can then look at the situation and say, oh, now that changes everything. Until we arrive at that kind of point, I'm going to say he's going to be here at least for the next 2 years, if not more.
Yeah, I'm kind of sticking to what I said from the very beginning. I don't see this as does he need to win 7 games? Does he need to win 8, 9, 10 games? Does he need to playoff? Does he need to win the Big Ten? What he needs to do is to go into the Big Ten, continue to be dominant in offense, and show significant growth on the defensive side of the ball. To play games and be competitive and win. Don't get me wrong. You can't have a losing season. You can't start stringing, like Matt and I talked about on the last show. You can't start stringing 5-loss, 7-5 seasons together. That won't be acceptable. But some people have called this a rebuild. Some people have called this a reset. Some people call this what it is. Dan Lanning didn't walk into the roster that Lincoln Riley is walking in. Sharon Moore is not walking into the roster that Lincoln Riley walked into 2 years ago. So, you know, you can't compare a lot of these different situations. I mean, quite frankly, at LSU, you know, I'm blanking out. Brian Kelly didn't walk into a roster like we had at USC. You can build quickly in the skill positions, but you can't build quickly where USC was suffering the most. Where? Defensive interior and offensive tackles. That's where USC had a big hole, and USC paid for it last year and paid for it on defense the year before. Everyone argues the fact that I think we need at some point, when are we going to put a moratorium on the whole Alex Grinch thing? That's what it was. It definitely is a kind of a black mark on Riley's career. But contrary to probably what Feinbaum said, he can't hire the right. He's only hired one DC, Paul, and it was a mistake. And he hung on to him too long. And I'm sure he'd be the first one to tell you that. But he's made one hiring mistake. And what was telling about the Feinbaum thing more than anything is not one word about a rebuilt defense, really. Not, you just kind of pretend to like, well, you know, he's going to keep rolling out through the same defense that he's had, or that he doesn't care. He literally said, it's my singular focus is to make this an elite defense. And every step he made in the offseason was in that direction. So appreciate you, Adam. Thank you so much. Great thoughts as always. You want to add to either one of those really quickly?
Yeah, just really quickly, what I'll say is, look, I think Riley deserves a chance, and I think a lot of people believe that. But if they believe that, they have to be patient. We are not going to go 10-2 this year. We're not going to go 11-1. But if we go 8-4, 9-3, that's a step in the right direction. And if we build on that for the next year, we may be in the playoff in 2 years. And I think we have to look at it as a restart and be patient, because Riley deserves that, given the deficiencies with our personnel and some of the NIL issues. So thanks, guys, so much for taking my call as always. Have a great evening.